farmers reimagine their life every time. ಇದು ಏನು ಹುಚ್ಚುತನ ಇದು ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಬಂದು ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಡೋಣ ಇದನ್ನು ವ್ಯವಸಾಯ ಅಂದರೆ ಬಿಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅದು. Almost in 1990, Oxfam wrote a paper called Climate Alert. India receives only 100 hours of rain, and that rain is regulated by the Western Ghat. There's going to be water war everywhere. It is no more global warming, global boiling. The little thing my mother said, have a little bit of Gandhi, and then I said I have to walk. Modi ji was coming and forcing me to walk far so that I could go to Glasgow and meet. And Copenhagen I wanted to go because I was going to meet Obama. But in Copenhagen, India did not sign up. But when I heard that India didn't sign up, I said, no, there's something going on.
ಬಂದಿರುವಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. I am Vasanthi and I'm really privileged that Pushpanath, that is Push as we all call him fondly, said that we should have this talk. Coming straight to the point, Push.
Okay. I'm terrified. All difficult question goes there. Easy ones come to me.
Yeah, I really wish that you're grilled for the kind of work that you do and climate change, so many controversial topics. But today we shall spare you. Okay, leaving alone all that television style of talk, we are here to get to the basics. I think Nimma walk indane shuru marona. You were walking a 500-kilometer distance across the Western Ghats, and I saw hundreds of people, children, women come out. Let's get into that, having come from Bangalore and commissioned by the BBC to do a story on Push. So let's start by saying that when did you start this? Andre mansal yen bantu that you just started walking?
Thank you. I won't be able to answer in full measure, but I'll really try. The background really is that I'm not a climatologist. I'm not an environmentalist. I know many of you came because you thought I'm going to talk about environment. I'm not. I'm an anti-poverty activist. Work with some of the poorest people across the world. My starting point is India, South India. I call it my sacred geography, South of India. That's where I come from. So I work on poverty and poverty issues. And in 2009, I was working with an organization called Oxfam, and we found that the people who are poorest are being hit hard by some kind of change that's happening in climate. Almost in 1990, Oxfam wrote a paper called Climate Alert. So I was charged with the responsibility of taking the message and bringing people together. Asked Push, please go and find out what's going on. So I traveled many parts of the world, and I undertook what is called a climate hearing. This is a hearing. Hearing is as old as a pyramid. And we had to do different approaches. And I decided I will only go and talk to the women because they are the most invisible. They get hurt first, worst, and hardest. So it is during that time, I was just doing my job. I was a global popular campaigner. Popular means not in a fancy way, but because to communicate what is a very difficult issues into a way, in a distilled way people understand. Farmers have a great ability to understand abstract things which we don't realize. But we have to tell the story, and I'm a storyteller. So that is the time I met many. Sharabanu is one whose story in 4 lines. She's from Gabura in Bangladesh. She got married. She came to the village. Within a short time, she found her land was getting more and more salty because the sea was rising. So she lost her land. So her husband went to Sundarban, the forest where they collect honey you talked about. Some of the best honey, but Sundarban also is the habitat for tiger, and he was killed. The husband got killed. She lost land, husband got killed, and they blamed her, as we always tend to do. When things go wrong, we blame women. When things go right, men, we take the price for it. So soon after that, she had no chance of doing anything else, and Cyclone Aila hit her in 2009. And I found her story, and I met her and asked her, will you come to London to speak? She said, no, I haven't been beyond my village. And she did. I enable people like that to tell their story. And Sharabanu came and met all the Commonwealth parliamentarians and ministers. And her story, the most important thing I want to say, in spite of all that beaten, battered, Sharabanu said, I'm going to rebuild my house. She reimagined. Farmers reimagine their life every time. ಇದು ಏನು ಹುಚ್ಚುತನ ಇದು ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಬಂದು ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಡೋಣ ಇದನ್ನು ವ್ಯವಸಾಯ ಅಂದರೆ ಬಿಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅದು. Yeah, it is like, every farmer has such intimate thing about, it's not about earth, it's about food. Farmers give us food, fuel, and also the forest. So ಅವಳು ಕತೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಅದೇ ಥರ I heard many other stories and hit me hard. And I thought, okay, I'm doing my job, but I have to do something. At the time, I remember my mother telling after watching Attenborough's Gandhi, she said in Tamil, I asked her, I was there trying to tell her what this movie is all about, and she understood. I said, then she turned to me and said, what do you think, Mama? And she said, it's good for you if you have a little bit of him. I said, why? Because nobody even should have so much of moral power as in the individual, and that could be a problem. So she said, have a little bit of, it is that little bit of thing that she said I should have is what exploded when I heard Sharabana's story. And I decided to walk. I walked as a child. I was a working child in Bangalore. I walked miles and miles to make, the one thing I remember most of my childhood is about hunger, hasibu. So for all that time, I sold food, I sold coffee, I did all the things. So walk came to me naturally, and I'm a very curious child. I've always been. And I always opposed violence. So at that time, at that moment, it exploded. The little thing my mother said, have a little bit of Gandhi. And then I said, I have to walk. And 3 people helped me. And none of my walk is supported by anybody in a big way. I don't take money from anyone. I just walk, I find somebody. That particular night, they feed me, and next day, they probably give me a sandwich. So that is what I was doing. And I walked at that time to Copenhagen from Oxford. That was in 2009. I was 59-year-old. Now I'm 72. I've done, thank you. I've done 7 walks. This became very important because I'm now a British citizen for the last 24 years and walking in Britain, and everybody likes it because Modi ji was coming, and her fraternity was forcing me to walk fast so that I could go to Glasgow and meet. Of course, he didn't meet, but there are other people who met. And Copenhagen, I wanted to go because I was going to meet Obama. My ambitions are very small. So, but I did meet a lot of other people. But in Copenhagen, India did not sign up. And that's what I thought. I've done one walk, I've done my duty, and so on. I was going to go home. But when I heard that India didn't sign up, I said, no, there's something going on. So I got to get back to India. So in 2010, I packed up. I sold my house in UK. From 2010 to 2019, I lived here. And most of my friends didn't even know I was here. I was under the radar. And that's when I started to walk in the Western Ghats, because most people don't realize the 1,600 kilometers of that is where ಏನಂತಾರೆ ಅದೊಂದು ಖಜಾನೆ, it's our treasure, and everything is there. And this is the one which gives rain to the country. India receives only 100 hours of rain, and that rain is regulated by the Western Ghats. So that is the intimate story, and I wanted to tell that. I walked along the Kaveri, and then I walked along from the other side. ಮೊದಲು ಬೆಟ್ಟದಿಂದ ಕೆಳಗೆ, ನಂತರ ಸಮುದ್ರದಿಂದ, from Pondicherry, walked along the sea, across the plain, and up the mountain. And so far, I have done about 38.5 million steps.
It's incredible. However, you come in with this agenda, which is, of course, to make sure that people talk to each other about what's happening in the climate in their lives and what they can do. So that's a question I'm going to come to. So where do you see the connection for people like you, me, and who is in the room to do things that will counter what you are working for?
Thank you. But first of all, unlike COVID, the issue about climate changes, it doesn't hit all of us at the same time with the same intensity. This is why now the last week in Europe was the highest temperature ever. So the Secretary General of UN, 2 days ago, he came and said, it is no more global warming. He said global boiling. You see, when the rich world start to see the thing they see, in 2009, when I walked and I told that, please listen to this, what I say. It's the darkest paradox of our times, that the poorest people who have not done anything are paying the highest price. Did you get that? Yeah. We all are going to be hurt. And they have no way to overcome that. In Texas, the billionaires have built an underground palace and loaded food for the next 10 years. So if everybody dies, they will come out and say, God, we got the whole place together now. So that's what is happening. So the climate impacts differentially. If the citizens don't take ownership of their little ecology, we cannot move forward. And the citizens will start with a citizen. So, in that sense, to go back to your answer, at each of us at a personal level, we are already changing. That's why you are here, I think. But we do not see the urgency of now. Because 1.5 degree ನಾವು ರೀಚ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಮೇಲೆ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕನ್ನಡದಾಗ ಹೇಳೋದಂದ್ರೆ ಹಾಲಸ್ ಚಿತ್ರಾನ್ನ ಆಗ್ತೀವಿ. We finish. There is no tomorrow. You said about the resort. There are no resort. This country, 60% of its population is under 30. They are the present and they are the future. We have borrowed this from them. We didn't inherit from our parents. We have borrowed this from our children. So each one, what you're doing, continue to do. When I was working at that time, this question was asked. There were only 5 books about what you can do. There are now 1 million books you can look up. What an India, including written by India, by Indians. So each one in different things that you. ನಾವು ಲೋಟದಿಂದ ನೀರು ಕುಡಿಯೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಹಿಡಿದು ನಾವು ಸ್ನಾನ ಬರತ್ತಂಗ 20 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ನಾನು ಒಂದು ಬಕೆಟ್ಗಿಂತ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಗೆ ನೀರು ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಐ ಸಾ ಮರ್ಡರ್. There is going to be water war everywhere. So it is up to each of us one at that level. Last year I walked in Africa. So and there I saw in the poorest locality, women have come together and start to collect waste, and they've got a biogas, they cook food, and they have a nursery, and they sell the nursery. And we were talking about the kind of things that they should have, high cost plantation, how to work with the local market people. So, and they make, and then they cook food and feed the hungriest children in that compound of very poor people. These are poorest women. So there are very positive things. But the most important thing is what I think a couple of days the Prime Minister was talking about how we're going to become net zero. One of the things we were talking about, the rich countries have to do it much earlier. I come from Britain. Britain is historically the largest emitter. Okay. So I told, you saw in that picture, 100 days after I went and took those cards and met the minister, I literally knocked the door because at the end of COVID, they would not meet in person, but we managed along with the young people who are my leaders. And then I told him, what about this, adaptation? You guys said 100 billion a year. We haven't seen the color of the money, and 100 billion is pocket money. And I told him that. He said, no, you shouldn't laugh at it. You should not stiff at 100 billion. I said, I will. Because look at the amount of money you spent on COVID. So we have to get at the personal level. Then we got to get our road level. We get our council level. When I was a child, we never saw water after 2 hours or even after an hour after rain. And we got a lot of things here to really address. And who will going to change it? Ourselves, as citizens. We got to take our local locality and we got to hold people responsible. Let us ask, do the Bangalore city has an adaptation, one, mitigation plan? We have to find a way to have. Let us hold citizens assembly. Each of you hold a citizen assembly with only 10 people. And let's make that a story. We are facing a planetary and a civilization crisis. Do you agree with me? So we got to rethink the whole economy. We cannot be going on this growth alone. The growth alone has got a lot of wealth. It has also reduced people from poverty. But at what cost? We are plundered. We got to be thinking of a reimagining. And I've got 3 things I want to say. If you reimagine, we have to reimagine there is a biocapacity for this earth. It cannot take overload the way we are doing. And we have to do something about it. The second thing is, it's everything we do, there need to be a word of fairness. That's why I support fair trade. Third is active democracy. You all talked about it. So let's really be very clear. Time is running out. It's ticking time bomb. Did you get what I'm trying to say? You are the change makers, not me. Let the fire burn, let the fire